No, you don't need the.
I'm doing legend. He a 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 legend. Welcome to the league. To the league. To the league. To the league. To the league of items. Welcome to the league. To the league. To the league. To the league. To the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and in today's video we're going to try to do a live stream that I can just save onto YouTube, because last time I tried to upload a video to YouTube it didn't go so well. But basically we're going to go over the Bwipo announcement. We're going to talk about what a good top laner is in League of Legends, and we're going to ask the question, where does Bwipo rank against all of the other top laners that exist in professional League of Legends. So first things first, let me get the Twitter video of Bwipo's announcement. We'll do a live reaction to that. I think it's pretty interesting because Bwipo is always a player that I've held in high regard. I think that he is one of the better top laners in the West for sure, and I think, you know, internationally he's also pretty highly ranked. So let me just get this on the screen. I know it's not in dark mode, but that's because of I had to clear all my cookies and stuff trying to figure out YouTube the other day. But let's do that, and let's talk about Bwipo.
Hey guys, Bwipo here. Wanted to take a moment to update you all on my situation here at Team Liquid. I'm essentially a free agent. Me and Team Liquid have agreed to make sure that if there is an opportunity coming in through spring, summer, or in between.
So the first thing that should be going through your brain right now is, you know, actually let's restart this. But the first thing that you should kind of ask yourself is Summit better than Bwipo? I think that Summit is a better carry top laner. I think Bwipo is a better all-around top laner. I think in certain top lane metas, Bwipo would be better. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Hey guys, Bwipo here. Wanted to take a moment to update you all on my situation here at Team Liquid. I'm essentially a free agent. Me and Team Liquid have agreed to make sure that if there is an opportunity coming in through spring, summer, or in between the splits that a team should want to hire me, they have complete freedom to do that, and I'm looking forward to any and all options. With that said, I'll be continuing with TL as a content creator for the...
So, okay, so he's going to be a content creator. So what does that mean for Team Liquid, and what does that mean for Bwipo? That means that he is only going to be focused on making, like doing live streams, making YouTube content in order to grow his own personal brand. This is a very good thing for Bwipo himself because there is a lot of money to be made as a content creator. And I think that Bwipo could easily become someone that's much larger than, like, maybe not larger than Kajol, because Kajol's pretty huge, but at least the same size. And I think that ultimately Bwipo is a better player and will ultimately be a better analyst than Kajol. Bwipo sees the game in a very unique way. That's what allowed him to go from being a top laner into the jungle and then going back to top lane without missing a beat. That kind of perception and ability to understand the game at a deeper level is what is going to make somebody like Bwipo a very good coach, a very good analyst, a very good content creator.
The upcoming season. Team Liquid did their best to reach out to other teams and see if I would get traded. TL really stuck their neck out for me and made sure that I could stay in America by hiring me as a content creator.
So that's very cool because of the whole visa situation. He's not a U.S. citizen, or a North American. Well, he's not a U.S. citizen, and to stay in quote-unquote North America means to stay in America as a content creator, so I guess they had to extend his work visa. That is pretty cool for him. I think that... yeah, I think that's a cool thing that Team Liquid did. At the same time, I think it speaks to a different kind of thing that's going on. And I think that although the United States is currently, you know, arguably in a recession, the entire global economy is doing worse than the United States. And that's not even my opinion. That's just kind of general consensus, is that even though inflation is bad in the United States, inflation is worse in almost every country. So still good to be an NA. And that could mean that the other League of Legends ecosystems are experiencing a more significant pullback than North America is right now. So even though a big talking point in the LCS this offseason was that they'd have to reduce player salary, reduce transfer fees, reduce staff and all that kind of stuff, they might still have more money available to them than the LEC for example. So then LCS would still be the place to be for somebody like Bwipo, even though the LEC is thought of as a more competitive region.
What does that mean short term? Short term, you can expect me to stream a bunch of hours. I try to do educational content, giving you a little bit of a peek in the mind of a pro player. See what you can learn from my streams over at twitch.tv/BwipoLOL. Once the season starts, I'll be exploring a little bit of coaching with the academy team, potentially LCS if possible. TL's already allowed me to do that, so we'll see what I can do to help the team. That said, whether I'm able to join the LCS again or not will be an adventure that I look forward to exploring, and I look forward to making.
It's funny, that's where the video cut out on me last time too, so we're gonna stop watching that. But basically, that's what is interesting about Bwipo, is that he is very flexible, and he may actually be too flexible to his own detriment. I think that it's possible that if he was more selfish and less reasonable, that he'd be a better carry top laner. Let me find the other top laners that are out there. So we'll start off in the LCS. I think that it's pretty clear that Bwipo is one of the better top laners in North America. I think that there's only probably 3 that I would be able to make an argument to have over him. So these are the LEC and the LCS. Let me get the LCK and the LPL. Okay, so let's talk about the different top laners. So I'm just going to compare them 1-to-1, and I'm not going to spend too much time. So Tenacity against Bwipo, the argument for Tenacity is that he is a younger player. I think that his upside, like if Tenacity has a good career, at some point he will be equal to Bwipo. He may never get better than Bwipo, though. Fudge, I think that you can make the argument right now that Fudge is a little bit better than Bwipo, especially at carrying, so I would probably rather have Fudge on the team personally. CLG, Dokla versus Bwipo. Guess what? Dokla is older than Bwipo. Dokla is like 25. I think Bwipo is 23. So with a player like, and this is why I talk about upside so much, why would you rather have a player like Dokla? I'm sure he's less expensive. Maybe he is better at talking to his teammates. I doubt that very highly. I think that Bwipo is probably just better overall. Armut against Bwipo. Bwipo has been better than Armut his entire career. Someday against Bwipo. This is more of an interesting one. Someday at his during his infancy in the pro esports scene, he was thought of as one of the best top laners in the world. I don't think Bwipo has ever reached that level in terms of having, well, actually, I mean, some people may think that he was the best at one point or amongst the best. Do I think that's the case? Probably not, but it's an argument to be had. So I think that Someday against Bwipo, personally, I would probably rather have Bwipo right now. I think they're about the same age, though. I think Someday's just been around forever because he's very good. Impact against Bwipo. I think I'd rather have Bwipo still right now. But again, Someday and Impact, there's an argument to be made. So it's kind of a question mark. Licorice against Bwipo, I'd rather have Bwipo. Revenge against Bwipo, I would definitely rather have Bwipo. Summit against Bwipo, depends on the meta. If it's a carry meta, I want Summit. If it's not a carry meta, I want Bwipo. The other thing I would say about this is that even in certain kinds of carry metas, Bwipo isn't picking Aatrox consistently. I think that he's the one who's more willing to play weak side top lane and allow the other team to think, oh, this top laner is so strong right now, I'm going to pick that top laner. And then he thinks that he has some kind of counter to it, or the mentality would be to outscale it and play weak side. That's not really a negative towards Bwipo, but it is something that impacts draft a decent amount. All right, let's go to the LEC. So in the LEC, Bwipo is better than Finn. He's better than Otoamne. He's better than Wonder. He's better than Broken Blade. I don't know who Chasey is. He's better than Shigenda. He's better than Irrelevant. Better than Adam. Better than Eevee. And I don't know about Photon. Photon is coming over from T1. So in the LEC, there are 2 to 3 players who might be better than him. And there's still an argument to be made for Bwipo being the better player. When Bwipo was in the LEC, he was the best top laner in my opinion. Some people would probably want to say, well, Broken Blade had a really good year last year. Otoamne had a pretty good last 2 years. But Bwipo is just as good, if not better than them. If you ask those rosters, who would you rather have, Bwipo or Otoamne, Bwipo or Wonder, Bwipo or Broken Blade? I think most of them would rather have Bwipo depending on cost. So I don't know what the cost of Bwipo is. That could be the thing that's, holding back other teams from taking him on. And ultimately, I don't know what his contract looks like with Team Liquid. He may still be paid by Team Liquid while he's not on the starting roster. So he's not really incentivized to leave, even though he's not starting, if his wages are being paid. So let's go to the LCK. Bwipo against Rascal. I think this one's pretty close. Rascal is a very good weak side top laner. I think of Rascal and Doran as like the same player in my mind. So I think that Bwipo against Rascal against Doran, I think they're all pretty similar. Some people will say that Rascal and Doran are better than Bwipo. I don't know if I really see that. So that one's at least a question mark. So we have 2 more top laners who are questionably better than him. Kana, I would rather have Kana than Bwipo. I know that Kana had a bad year last year. Or maybe the last 2 years, but that's not him personally. That's his teams were struggling to perform. When your team is not playing well, they're not winning, you're not going to have great KDA. You're not going to be thought of as one of the best top laners in the region. Like that might not actually be true in LCK because people have always had a really high opinion of Keen, for example, and a lot of his teams have been substandard. So I would rather have Kana. Morgan against Bwipo. I like Morgan a lot. I think that Morgan's best case scenario might be higher than Bwipo, but that one's definitely an argument to be had. I know a lot of people watching this, if you're primarily watching the LEC or the LCS, you're probably going to say Bwipo is better, but I think that Morgan is probably better with upside. Kingen, I think, is a very similar situation. He had a great World Finals. He went toe-to-toe with Zeus. That's great. Like, good job. I don't think that Kingen should be rated much differently. It's just that the gap between the quote-unquote best top laners in the world and someone like Kingen isn't big enough to allow them to like draft sloppily or like give over like Aatrox and Camille and stuff like that and just assume that Kingen can't beat you with it. Like, you have to be able to punish the opponent, and Kingen is definitely skillful enough to do that in the top lane. Keen, probably rather have Keen. I don't think as highly of Keen as others do. Like, personally, I'd rather have Kana than Keen. But, I'm not here to have that argument. So, Kana, Keen, Kingen. Honestly, all these top laners so far, I think that there's at least an argument to be made. Like, maybe you're better off with Bwipo. Maybe you're better off with the other ones. I think Kana I would for sure rather have. And probably Keen. And probably Kingen. Then we go to Dudu. I don't want Dudu on my team, so I'll take Bwipo over Dudu. Birdall. I'd rather have Birdall than Bwipo. Birdall is like 18 years old, I think. He is a very highly thought of top laner. He's very mechanically gifted. He is not a weak side player, so he didn't fit well with Genji, with Damwon, and that was kind of just the issue. So that's that. Nongshim. Dan, I call him Dan because I see DN, and I don't know what his name is actually supposed to sound like, so I'm going to call him Dan. I don't know him. I'd rather have Bwipo. And then Zeus, I'd rather have Zeus. But, the whole thing about Dan being... not Dan. The whole thing about, like, Zeus and 369 being the 2 best top laners in the world, they were talking about it so much at Worlds, and it was so obviously not true to somebody like me. Zeus, maybe you could have made that argument, but somebody like 369, like, we've seen him be the scapegoat for teams before. He's not consistent enough to be thought of as the best top laner in the world. Like, he was on a good run of form at that point, so good for him. But that shouldn't change how we look at him going into next year. So before we get into the LPL, let's just go through the top laners again. So in North America, I'd rather have Fudge. So that's one top lane that I'd rather have. And then Summit, Someday, and Impact are all, there's an argument to be made. Tenacity, there's an argument to be made because of how young he is. In the LEC, I would rather have Bwipo than everyone, except for maybe Photon, and that depends on, what Photon's upside is like. Obviously, he's a T1 prospect, so that's pretty good. And then in the LCK, Rascal, Kana, Morgan, Thorin, Kingen, Keen, Birdall, Zeus. There's 8 top laners where it would be at least a conversation about which top laner is better or better for a specific roster. And then let's go to the LPL. And this one's probably going to be surprising to a lot of you because people think the LPL is just better in general than the LCK. But I think in terms of player talent, like known quantities, I think that Korea is actually easier to kind of deal with. So ZDZ, he's had some really good performances, but he's also had some bad performances. Anyone's Legend has been an interesting team for the last year. I know that Jay Skelts likes them a lot. I'm not as big of a fan. I'd rather have Bwipo, I think, than ZDZ. Bin versus Bwipo, I'd rather have Bin. Flandre against Bwipo, that one's close, but it's probably Flandre favored just because he has so much experience. Bwipo also went on a very deep Worlds run when he was on Fnatic. So you can say that he has like really good Worlds experience. Xiaolahu is a very good carry top laner. If it was a carry top meta, I'd rather have Xiaolahu. Zika versus Bwipo, I'd probably rather have Bwipo. 369 against Bwipo, I'd rather have 369, and I still would have rather to have 369 before the whole like Worlds narrative kind of got out of control. And even when he was on top esports and was being blamed for stuff, I probably still would have rather had 369 because he is a high upside player. I want that on my teams, but I understand why you wouldn't. Chalizi, I'd rather have Bwipo, I think. Ale, I'd rather have Ale. Shanji, I'd rather have Shanji. Cube, I think I'd rather have Bwipo, but Cube is pretty good. He's more of like a like they're called like shake hands top laners in like the LCK, where Cube is like going to take, you know, one of the two agreed upon sides for top lane, and the matchup will go the way the matchup is supposed to go, and he's not going to really deviate outside of that too much. And I'm not saying that Cube is Korean, I'm just saying like that's a concept from Korea. Breathe, I think that Breathe is definitely better than Bwipo. Bwipo and Demon, I'd probably rather have Bwipo. I don't know either of those players well enough. Bwipo is the more well-known name. Wayward and King Tian. People were saying that Wayward was one of the best top laners in the world last year because he was having a good summer, and you know that was kind of silly. Hoya, Bwipo was better than Hoya. Zoom, CS, and Harry. Zoom is a better weak side top laner than Bwipo probably, but he's also past his prime. ZS is probably a better carry top laner than Bwipo, but he's very volatile, and we haven't seen it consistently on the LPL stage. And then the Shy, I'd rather have the Shy, even though he's a complete madman and will feed games. So when it comes down to it, you know, it's not super easy to figure out why is Bwipo not on a different team. So somebody in the chat actually said, Ethidian, welcome. He said his benched wages should be relatively low. I'm no expert, but I've heard 40% is an expected normal. Reckless was as low as 6% on the bench, however. So that depends on whether or not the player was starting. For somebody like Bwipo, I'm sure that Team Liquid probably didn't anticipate missing Worlds last year, so I would be surprised if it was on the higher end of things, or if he probably had a bench clause in there. But you know, I don't know any better. But that's really where I'm at with Bwipo. I think that we need to be able to agree on, like, you know, what is a good top lane and all that stuff. But let's do a little bit of a recap. So in Bwipo's announcement video, I think that there's not too much that we can learn from that outside of the fact that Team Liquid supposedly tried to reach out to other teams but wasn't successful in creating a deal. And I think that probably had to do with his contract, because Bwipo is obviously talented enough to play on most teams in the world. If he spoke Korean, he could probably be an LCK top laner without a problem, from like a mechanics perspective. In the LCS, there's only one player that I would definitely rather have than him, and that's Fudge. But there are 4 to 5 players who I could see there being like an argument of why you might want to have the other person. In the LEC, I think that Bwipo is better than every single top laner in the LEC, except for maybe Photon, and that's just because I don't know Photon. But I would most likely rather have Bwipo going into this next year. In the LCK, it's a little different. I think there's between 6 to 8 top laners that are equal to, if not better than Bwipo, but most of them are not better than Bwipo. It comes down to the meta. And at Worlds, we saw a meta where carry top laners were preferred and did better, which happens every once in a while. But we cannot anticipate what's going to happen in Worlds a year from now. So that's why having a flexible top laner is often better. Then in the LPL, I think we said Bin, Flandre, Shallow, 369, Ale, Shanji, Breathe, The Shy. So again, there's probably about 7 or 8 top laners that I would definitely consider at Bwipo's level or better. So we have 7 in the LPL. Let's say 8 in the LCK. So that's 15. Maybe 7 between 15 to 20 top laners in the world that I think are equal to, if not better than Bwipo. I would probably say that Bwipo ends up being a top 15 top laner on that list for sure. And maybe that's what we should do. So let's just keep turning this into an even longer video. So let me put this on my other screen. So where does Bwipo rank? So let's start Bwipo here. Who's better, Bwipo or Tenacity? I would say Bwipo. So let's put Tenacity down. Or maybe we shouldn't do it like that. Let's put Tenacity down here. And let's put Fudge. Let's put Someday, Impact, Summit. And I think those are the only ones we really need from here. And, you know, I think that the top lane in the LCS is actually pretty good. Then we have Finn, Odoamne, Wonder. Like, we could just do honorable mention. LEC top laners. And then, like, Photon. Because it's like Photon. Photon's really the only one I would put on this list. Odoamne, Wonder, Broken Blade. Those are the honorable mentions. Finn, honorable mention. But let's see what it looks like with the LCK included. So in the LCK, I think you can go Zeus as the best. I would put Kana in the top 2. I think that Kana is one of the best top laners in the world when he's playing at his peak. So let's do this. So I think that SS, Rascal, Doran, Kingen, Keen, Birdall. I think they're all they all represent a similar part of the spectrum in my mind. I think that Kingen had a great Worlds performance. Let's not overrate him. Keen has always been highly thought of and a solid performer on mediocre, if not bad teams. Birdall has very high upside, but has never consistently proven it on the pro stage. And then Rascal and Doran have been 2 top laners who have been a part of good rosters, but haven't necessarily shown on their own. Then we can do... I think the Shy belongs up here. I think that the Shy is one of the best, for sure. I think that we can put Breathe up here. I think Breathe is one of the best. I think that 369, based on last year, you can make the argument that he's up there. Then you have Bin, Xiao, Lao Hu, Ale, Shanji, Wayward. Oh, Wayward, not Waywood. And then we'll put this as another one. Kingen, Keen, Birdall, Rascal, Doran. So where do these players belong here? So let's put Fudge and Bwipo up here. All right, so we're not doing that many. So a lot of these guys probably don't belong on this list. So again, this isn't shots fired. I'm not trying to say that anybody not on this list sucks or anything like that. But in terms of the top 10, not the top 10. This is how I think the players kind of figure out that are close to each other. So let's try to put Bwipo in here. I think that I'd rather have Bwipo over Summit someday and Impact. I think that it's very close though. I'd rather have Fudge, Kingen, Keen, Birdall, Rascal, Doran. I'd rather have Kingen, Keen, Birdall over Fudge and Bwipo, but probably not Rascal and Doran. So let's remove them. Bin, Xiaolahu, Ale, Shanjay, Wayward. They don't all belong in this order, so I'd probably do this 369 Keen. I'd probably rather have this. And then Kana, the Shy, and Bree, they're all pretty similar. I think these four are probably my four best. So let's do that. Zeus, Kana, the Shy, and Breathe are my top 4 top laners going into next year. Then we have players like Kingen, Keen, Birdall, 369, Rascal, Doran. This looks good. Then I think this is where you have Bin, Ale, Fudge, Bwipo, Summit, Someday, Impact, Xiaolahu, Ale, Wayward, and then maybe Shanji belongs below them. So then I would do like Shanji / LEC top laners. And you know, I'm not trying to say that anybody not on this list isn't as good. It's just I don't know them well enough to say if they belong up here. But I think that S are like top laners who are good enough to be the winning difference on a championship team consistently. I think that you can make the argument Kingen was the winning difference in that matchup against T1, but I don't think if you play that match like 100 times that he is going to consistently give you an edge. I think that Zeus is a little bit better of a top laner than him overall. But slight. Like, it was talked about as if it was like a 70-30 matchup where maybe it's like 55-45 or a coin flip. Then in the A tier, you have Kingen, Keen, Birdall, 369, Rascal, Doran, where I think these players are consistently on good teams or consistently thought of as the top performer on a bad team. Then you have Bin, Ale, Fudge, Bwipo, Summit, Someday, Impact, Xiaolahu, Ale, Wayward. All of these players have been on good teams, but sometimes they're scapegoated or they're like thought of as a hindrance to their team. But B is like players that if you have them at Worlds, you're not going to second guess them being at Worlds. And then you have C, which are Shanji and the LEC top laners, and maybe some of these guys belong in B as well. But it was a pretty haphazardly thrown together list. But that's basically it. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about Bwipo. I wanted to talk about top laners, and talk about what it means to be a good top laner. And at the end of the day, you either need to be a very good weak side top laner or a very good carry top laner. I think that carry top lane players should be more highly valued than the weak side top laners. But that's a topic for a different video, I guess. So